everyone, my name is Alyssa, I read, and welcome to my channel, and today we're talking about my 2022 TBR. I probably should have made this in January when everyone else did, but you know, it's halfway through and I feel like I can still make this video. So it's more like, this is my TBR for the second half of 2022. I have 22 books on here. Will I read them? I guess we'll see. A lot of these are YA fantasy. A lot of them are the first in a series or a sequel. I do have some romances on here, but most of them are paranormal romances that I've had on my TBR like forever. And then there's some things some other just like one-off things that I do actually want to get to. So let's get on with the list. So the first one here is Smoke in the Sun by Renee Ahdieh. Oh, it's a little damaged here, but I bought a damaged copy, so it's not a big deal. But this is the second book in her series. The book one is The Flame in the Mist, and I really liked it a lot. I remember a long time ago when the series came out that people weren't like super impressed by it. So I went in kind of with my eyes open, knowing that some people didn't really like it, but I was like so in love with it. I think people's main complaint was that it wasn't a true Mulan retelling. It's not a Mulan retelling because it's definitely like Japanese, like historical fantasy. It's a lot of like influences with the Shogun and everything, and I don't know much about Japanese history, but that was kind of like the fantasy setting. And so this is book two, and in book one, our main character, she does dress up as a boy because people attacked her carriage and she was on her way to meet her fiance because she was going to marry the king's son, not the son that is to inherit, but his like bastard son, who is in charge of the military and everything. Anyways, her carriage gets attacked and she's like the only survivor, and she knows that in order to survive she needs to pretend to be a boy, and she kind of gets mixed up with the Black Clan because she thinks that the Black Clan is who attacked her carriage, and so she pretends to be a boy and she gets on the inside of the camp, and then it's about her story kind of learning about the Black Clan, who these people are, and there is a romance in here, but I really loved it for the fantasy element mostly, and I really want to get to book two and see what happens. Continuing on with Renee Ahdieh, I do really want to read The Beautiful. Again, people like didn't really love this, but I love her books. Apparently, like I read her Wrath in the Dawn duology and absolutely loved it. I loved Flame in the Mist, and so I know I'm gonna love this because it is historical mystery, I would say more. I know this involves vampires. It's not like the main focus. It's set in 1872. I love that time era for my historical fantasies, in New Orleans, and that's all I know. Like, I don't know much. I think there is a bit of a mystery and she gets mixed up with some people and there's vampires somehow involved. I think the vampires are the villains. It's not like a vampire romance, but yeah, I'm so excited to begin this series. Continuing on, not with paranormal, but like paranormal like writers, and I have Moonlight Seduction by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now this is not a paranormal romance, but she does write those as well. But this is her second book in the De Vincent series, and this series we're following like a very rich family, and they're not mafia, but they definitely have like mafia vibes and everything. And so book one I absolutely loved. I gave it 5 stars, and the romance was with one of the brothers, and there's 3 brothers in this family, and this is the second one, and we're following Gabriel's story. His previous love died recently, and he found out that I think he had a daughter, and so I'm pretty sure he takes his daughter in because his former lover has passed, and so and it's his romance. That's all I really know. I don't really want to know too much, but the heroine's name is Nicolette. And it usually like takes place at their estate, and their estate is like very mysterious. You don't know what's going on. Book one had a bit of a mystery, and I'm sure there'll be some mysteries in here too. And like it's kind of like a question of, is the house haunted? What's going on? Yeah, I loved book one, so I'm excited to move on to book two. I have a lot of paranormal on here. I know that last one kind of is, kind of isn't, but I really want to get to Bitten by Kelly Armstrong. I read her Darkest Powers trilogy, which is a YA paranormal romance trilogy. But this is the first one in her adult paranormal romance series. And it's take place in Toronto, and our heroine, I think she's a werewolf, and she writes for the Toronto paper, and that's all I know. But I'm excited because I love the world so much. Like the Darkest Powers, I'm pretty sure that world is the same as this world, and so it's a paranormal world with not just werewolves, but like other magical paranormal creatures, and so I really want to get to the series. Speaking of Kelly Armstrong, I want to read the Darkest Powers Tales. I think that's what it's called. It's a short story collection. I read the trilogy this year and fell in love with it, and so I picked up just the ebook of the short story collection, and I haven't gone to it yet. I should. I really should. And I just want to read more stories about Chloe and Derek, and I love them as a couple, and I just want to read more. So I want to get to that at some point. Another short story collection I want to get to is The Lives of Saints by Leigh Bardugo. This is a short story collection, kind of like what the title says, is just, it's very short stories. Like the stories are about like 1 to 2 pages, and it covers the saints that are part of the Grisha world. So like the history of these saints. That's basically it. It's super short, so it's a short story collection. And it's beautiful, of course, with beautiful images, and I haven't gotten to this, so I really want to, and I do want to read the short story that I haven't read in the Grisha universe. I think The Demon of the Woods. I haven't read it yet. It's not part of this list, but I'm just like tagging onto it for this one. Another Leigh Bardugo book I haven't read yet is Ninth House, and I have a feeling I'm just gonna like be obsessed with this story because I think it's set at Harvard or Yale, like a prestigious school. Yes, it's set at Yale. I think it's paranormal fantasy, horror, thriller involving the occult. That just sounds amazing. I really want to read it so bad. It's going to be like sororities that are getting involved with these things. I think that's the idea. I don't know too much about it. I don't want to know a lot. Yeah, I really want to get to this. I also would love to finish, is it Folk of the Air? Is that what this trilogy is called? The Cruel Prince trilogy. I reread The Cruel Prince and loved it, so I do want to get to The Wicked King and The Queen of Nothing and this world. This story is about Jude, and she's a human living in the fairy world, and she is just trying to make it on her own. Find a place for herself in this world, even though she's discriminated because she's a human. A lot of politics, a lot of intrigue, a lot of spying and things like that. And I just love the series so much, so I just want to continue. I have more paranormal, of course, an adult fantasy romance series, so I want to get to Dark Lover. It's just a vampire romance series following different couples in each book, and that's all I know. I don't know much about it, but I also want to start Dead Until Dark. Is that book one? I really hope so. This is the Suki Stackhouse series. I've been collecting these books over the past few years. Haven't even started, and I need to. This is the book or series based on True Blood, and I want to read this series and then I can watch True Blood. Another vampire romance paranormal. I can't wait. So I have another fantasy series I want to continue, and that is The Eternity Cure by Julie Kagawa. This is book 2. What is the series even called? It's called the Blood of Eden series or trilogy. Book 1 was The Immortal Rules, and this is The Eternity Cure. More vampires, but this is a fantasy. I don't consider it paranormal. Because Julie Kagawa writes it like a YA fantasy. And there's some romance, but the focus is the fantasy, and we follow Allison, and I think she's trying to find a cure for the disease that is being a vampire. And so I just really want to continue on this world because I absolutely love it, and I love Allison as a character, and yeah, so I really just want to continue. So I wouldn't call this, I guess it's a fantasy romance. It's YA, and I haven't read it yet. A Curse So Dark and Lonely. I have a feeling I'm gonna love this. It is a Beauty and the Beast retelling romance, and our heroine, she has disability rep. I forget what, but I think she has crutches. She is whisked away from our modern world into whichever fantasy world that the Beast lives in, and I feel like it's kind of like a continuous curse. Like he keeps trying to have women fall in love with him, and it's just never working. This is the first of a series, and I've heard this is the best one in the series, but if I fall in love with this, which I anticipate I will, then I will for sure continue. So I have something that is different from all the previous books, but that is Naked in Death by J.D. Robb. So J.D. Robb is also Nora Roberts, and this is the first in her In Death series. So this series, all the titles have something in death. Naked in Death, Glory in Death, Immortal in Death, and so on and so forth. There's like 50 books in this series. Over 50 books. She's still writing this series. And look at this copy. It is beautiful, and it's like in perfect condition and completely like vintage. I'm just like obsessed. This came in a box set that I found secondhand. Anyways, this is a detective series, which I'm really excited about because I realized I do really like detective stories. Like I grew up watching like murder mysteries with my dad, and so I'm really excited about this, and it's a romance as well, because it's Nora Roberts, right? So I don't even know, there's no synopsis here. Her name is Eve, she lives in New York, and she's part of the New York police, and she's hunting for a killer, and she falls for someone who I think is part of the case, like maybe a suspect. Sounds juicy. So I have some fantasies on my bookshelves that have been there forever. One of which is A Darker Shade of Magic. This is not technically YA, I think it's adult. But this is one of these like classic YouTube books that everyone's read and I haven't. I have many of those books on my bookshelves, which is why I'm trying to read through my bookshelves. But I think this is like traveling through different like parallel universes, and I think that's all I know. I just remember hearing about like Grey London, Red London, White London, and our character can jump through them. Everyone loves this, and I haven't read V.E. Schwab yet. Like, isn't that insane? I haven't read any of her books. I don't know what's wrong with me. I just haven't got to this, so it would be really cool if I finally did. Another YA booktube classic is Scythe. Haven't read this. This is a dystopian where people learn to become a scythe, where they basically kill people because the world, there's no death anymore. No one dies, and so in order to keep the population down, they have to glean people, basically. I've heard this series is really interesting and fascinating, and I do really want to get to it because it sounds great. I also have The Raven Boys. I can't believe I haven't read this series. I've heard amazing things. It's also kind of paranormal. And it's like a boarding school kind of aspect, and it's blue and these 4 boys, and I think they go on a quest to try and find, like, I forget. I want to say hobbit, but not a hobbit, and not an elf. I don't know. But I really want to read this at some point because I have a feeling I would love it. Switching back to my adult paranormal romances, I really want to start this series because it sounds so campy, but I think it would be a lot of fun. The first book is How to Marry a Millionaire Vampire. I think the author's name is Carolyn Sparks. And I have one of her books, but it's like a sequel, so I want to start at the beginning. And all these books have like really campy titles. The one I own is called How to Seduce a Vampire Without Really Trying, and you know, like Stake in Love or something like that. Like there's a lot of like really campy titles, and it just sounds like it would be just a lot of fun. I love camp in my paranormal, and I don't know, I just really want to get to it. The other one I want to get to is A Touch of Malice by Scarlett St. Clair. I read the first 2 books in the series, and I need to get to the 3rd one, and I don't know what to expect. I feel like it's going to be like a war or something, and I don't know how I feel about that because it's basically like a paranormal romance. I just can't picture people fighting in this world, but I want to get to it at some point because I love the series. I have a couple YAs. I want to get to Get a Clue. This is the 4th book in the Bookish Boyfriends series. I've read the first 3 and just like absolutely love them. This is like a YA romance series, and they're all retellings of classics. So the first one is Pride and Prejudice, the second one is Little Women, and the 3rd one is Anne of Green Gables. But there's some kind of like magical realism in these stories just to kind of like make it a lot more fun. And so I really want to get to this one. I know these characters, they've been mentioned before. They're part of the same friend group of the other characters, and it's their romance, and I really want to get to it. And as you could probably tell, it is a Sherlock Holmes retelling, so I guess they're going to work together to solve a mystery and probably fall in love in the process. Other book I want to get to, and I haven't decided which one, but I want to either restart or finish the Infernal Devices. I've been feeling like this pressure, but like I want to finish the Infernal Devices before I move on to the other series by Cassandra Clare, and I just been putting it off because I have like this like love-hate relationship with Cassandra Clare. Like I find some choices she makes really frustrating, and so I just never continued, and I didn't think I was going to, but then I picked up Chain of Gold. I saw it in the store and I bought it, and I probably shouldn't have, but it was just so beautiful and I was kind of like intrigued by the hype, and so I picked it up and obviously never read it because I felt like I need to read Clockwork Princess. It's been so long that I wonder if I should just like reread the trilogy and just like kind of enjoy it for what it is. I don't know. I haven't decided, but I need to do something with this series. And last but not least, I want to read some Oscar Wilde, and the one that I'm specifically choosing is The Importance of Being Earnest. I've never read this play before, but it's one of my favorite plays, I think, of all time. Like I don't really watch a lot of plays. I've watched the movie, like I grew up watching it, not realizing it was a play. At some point I really want to borrow like an audiobook of the play and just listen to it and follow along and just really have a really fun experience, because I love this play and I haven't watched the movie in a really long time. I do recommend the movie. It has Colin Firth and Reese Witherspoon and Robert Everett and Judi Dench. Like it's really great. So if you like Oscar Wilde at all, you should watch that movie. So, and I'm going to be reading some of his short stories in here. I'm not going to like read this whole thing, but I'll definitely get to the play and read some of the short stories. I'll probably start with the Ballad of Reading Gaol. I don't know how to pronounce that. Which is like very short and it's more like a poem, I think. So anyways, that's it. That is my 2022 TBR. 22 books here, 21 too many, I think, but we'll see. These are like, when I look at this, these are the books that I actually really want to get to. I may still put them off, but we'll see. By putting it on this list forces me to pick them. But yeah, so that's it for this video. I would love to know if you've read any of these books before. If you have, I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions about them. I would love to know if you have a 2022 TBR that you're working on, or if you made a new TBR for the second half. Please comment down below. I'd love to know what you're thinking about reading or how you choose your books. Please comment down below. I'd love to have a conversation with you in the comments. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe. If you have not done so, you can follow me on Goodreads and Instagram. And you know what? I want you to keep reading. Bye.